Hey everyone, how are you doing tonight? It is Tuesday, and it's been a little bit crazy around here. Uh, Sorry I missed last night. I was dealing with some issues for one of my clients that, I always want to leave people feeling good about their experiences with me. Um, Today I wanted to talk a little bit about legitimate business expenses, and the reason I wanted to bring that up was that a lot of times clients will ask us to write off things that have nothing to do with the normal and ordinary course of doing business. And it's really common, actually, that people want to write off things that aren't business expenses. Example of this is clothing and dry cleaning. Now, the only time clothing is a tax-deductible expense or a legitimate business expense is if it is required for the performance of your job. Okay, clothing's always required for the performance of your job. But specific clothing that's required for the performance of your job, such as things like steel-toed boots if you're a construction person, or scrubs and a white coat if you're a doctor. That you're not going to wear anywhere but to work. If you're a tow truck driver, you want the reflective clothing because you don't want to get hit by a car while you're doing your job. You're not going to wear that anywhere except to work. So those things that are more of a uniform almost are considered tax deductible. They are a legitimate expense. I wear suits a lot of time for work, and while it is an expense and it is something that I do for business, it is not something that I can write off, unfortunately. Wish it was. My clothing, because I'm in the financial industry, in the bookkeeping industry, just because I dress up for work, and I like to look nice, I don't get to write off my clothing. I don't get to write off my nylons. I don't get to write off my shoes. I don't get to write off my makeup, by the way. I don't get to write off my haircuts. Because those things are things that I have to have done anyway. It would be really lovely if we could, but we can't. It's just not something that the IRS considers a normal and ordinary expense of doing business. Again, I wear my suits to, I can wear those on dates, actually. Or I could if I dated. But then there is clothing that is very specific towards certain professions. I have a lot of small business owners that they're very involved in their business, which is awesome. They're so involved in their business that that's really what they talk about all the time. And again, that's awesome. But just because you talk about business all the time and all the driving that you do is for business and you're constantly meeting with clients doesn't mean that you get to write off everything. Again, I kind of go back to if I had my druthers, we could, but I don't get to make the rules. I can only tell you what the rules are. For example, if I just go out to lunch, that's not a business expense. If I buy groceries, that's not a business expense. Unless I can document that it was a legitimate business expense by doing something like writing on the receipt, oh, I went to lunch with so-and-so. This was a sales meeting, and we discussed accounting. It has to be documented. If you're just going out with your kids, even though you happen to be talking about the business a little bit, you're going to have a harder time convincing the IRS that that is a legitimate deduction. Let's see, clothing. Clothing's one that people really try to write off. I've seen people try to write off suits and dry cleaning. And while I understand and whether I agree with the rules or not, I have to tell you what the rules are. I've had clients try to write off, again, personal grooming. that would be great, but unless you're a model or an actress, it's not allowable. I've had people try to write off again groceries, and that's not allowable. Unless again, if you went and bought groceries for an office party, then and you document it. Documentation is everything. Then you can make a case for it. But everything that you buy at Smith's or Kroger is not just a write-off because you want it to be. Another one. You're going to hear me talk a lot about the normal and ordinary cost of doing business. And that is what the IRS says. Again, if your business is that you're an actor or a model and your business is based entirely on your appearance, then yeah, you can get away with including grooming expenses. But unless that's your profession, that's not going to be the case. If you're a fashion model, you might get away with being able to write off some clothing. Or a fashion designer. But unless you're in that industry, you're not going to get to write that off. Unless, again, it's a uniform that you can't wear anywhere else. Again, a professional example of that would be, if you're a physician and you wear scrubs or a white coat, a lab coat, safety goggles, stuff like that. That could be easily construed to be a legitimate business expense. Meals and entertainment. That's one that everybody just loves to use. Meals and entertainment it's mostly for salespeople. If you go out to lunch and the primary reason for your lunch appointment is to discuss business, then it can be allowable. But if you're just going out to eat just to go out to eat, and that's not the primary reason for your business lunch, then again, you're going to have a hard time proving that to the IRS. Document everything, by the way. Documentation is everything. Mileage on your car. The rules for mileage on your car. If you, usually you can deduct business mileage. Now I will deduct, I work out of my home, so if I am just running a couple of errands, if I go to the office supply store or something, I'm probably not even going to include that. But if I drive up to North Utah and it's a business trip, then that I will deduct. And I know for 2016, the mileage rate was 54 cents a mile. You want to keep track of your mileage for your car. You also want to keep track of expenses for your car, car insurance, repairs and maintenance, car washes, fuel, all of that needs to be accounted for. They need to be broken out separately. And when you go to sit down with your tax accountant, you can figure out which way is going to make the most sense for you. Now, usually it's mileage. Not always, but almost, well, not always, but almost always it's mileage. So you're going to want to keep track of everything to do with your car. I'm trying to think of some of the other things that I've been asked to track that are not business expenses, and they're never going to be business expenses unless you're an extremely specialized business. You need to be very careful about your contractors and consultants. I have seen clients really abuse the contractor rule. If you are controlling your workers in any way other than going by the result, if you are asking them to keep certain hours, if you are requiring them to behave in a certain way, really at all, then it's very easy. I mean, the IRS and I know in the state of Utah, they do not like independent contractors unless they really are independent contractors. And an independent contractor is exactly that. They can do whatever they want to do with their businesses. And the person to whom they're contracted doesn't get a whole lot of say in that. So you need to be very careful and make sure that if you are treating your workers as independent contractors to save on taxes, that that's really, truly, honestly, 100% what they are, and you have done absolutely nothing to break that rule. Otherwise, you can very easily be brought onto the hook for years and years of back taxes. Not something you ever want to face. And I'll talk more about the rules for independent contractors in a later video. But, you know, I've seen a lot of clients get very frustrated with me because I wouldn't break the rules for them. That honestly, the clients that have really gotten the angriest have been the ones that were less than honest themselves. I'm very good at what I do. I am very, you know, I enjoy doing it. And when you have something that you enjoy doing, you want to learn to do it better and better. I'm constantly learning more about, you know, you'd think that at a certain level you know everything there is to know about bookkeeping. I'm learning more all the time about bookkeeping and how to do a better job for my clients. Everything from learning about different software systems to introducing new ways that you know, maybe I hadn't really thought about before. Maybe they're old ways and I hadn't really thought about them before to communicate with my clients. For example, these Facebook Live videos. That's one of the things you want to look for in a bookkeeper. I get to write off almost all of my technology because I use it 100% for work. I also get to write off a portion of my home expenses because I have a dedicated office in my home. So whatever percentage of square footage that office takes up is a business expense. And that comes in really handy at the end of the year when I do my taxes, because that really brings my deductions up. You want to make sure that you're getting all of your deductions, but you also want to make sure that they are legitimate deductions. So again, I have clients all the time that are small business owners that are very invested in their business and they want to write off everything. And while I like to be pretty aggressive about what I tell you can write off, I will tell you what I think the IRS will say, and you can take it up with your tax person is really what I will say. I will be fairly aggressive. If you stop somewhere and get McDonald's on your way into work, I'm going to put that under meals and entertainment, and it's up to you and your tax preparer to figure out if that really was a business expense. Because my take on it is, if it wasn't, you wouldn't have used your business card. That's kind of how I go by it. And that brings me to commingling, which again, I'm going to talk about in a later video. What else? Telephones are allowable. I can write off my line and my cell phone, but I cannot write off, for example, my kids, even though we're all on the same plan. I can write off, I'm trying to think of some of the most common ones. If you have an ATV and you hire your kids to snowplow your parking lot at the office, not at home, probably not okay at home. I would check my tax preparer before I tried to write that one off. But if you have them do that at the office, you have a better chance of being able to get that to be approved by the IRS. You're going to hear me talk about the IRS a lot. It's not that I prepare taxes, but the books that I prepare for you are always going to be the basis of any taxes that are filed. So I want to make sure that they're 100% correct. you know, being an accountant, I want everything to balance to the penny. That's kind of how we're hardwired. If I wasn't that kind of a person, I would make a really lousy bookkeeper. Trying to think. I will keep track of medical expenses for you, but you're going to need to talk to your tax preparer about that. Again, I have prepared taxes in the past. I enjoy doing taxes for small business, but I have not done taxes in 8 years. So I am out of date with anything but the most basic, as specifically how to prepare taxes. Obamacare threw everything off. And while I know the generals, I don't know the specifics of your situation. Although I would talk to your tax preparer if you hire me to do your books and your accountant comes up excuse me, and has questions, then absolutely, I'm going to sit down with him and over Skype or on the phone and talk to him or her. I'm kind of sexist, you know. I always assume the bookkeeper's a her and the accountant's a guy, but that's not always the case. And I've known some wonderful female accountants and some wonderful male bookkeepers. So, but I would talk to your accountant and I would explain to him why I wrote things up or allocated things the way I did. So that's just a really fast overview of legitimate business expenses. I will be doing a YouTube video on this subject later on, so make sure you watch out for my YouTube channel. Of course, I will post that video here. And I will see you guys again tomorrow night. Have a wonderful night, and it's supposed to snow when you talk tonight, so be safe out there.